Wow. 1 million downloads. To each and every one of you, I want you to know how absolutely fired up I am, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my Plant Strong feet to the top of my Plant Strong head and everything in between. Thank you for allowing me into your earbuds, into your kitchens, and for allowing me to join you on your long walks and on road trips, even if those road trips are just a short drive around the neighborhood these days. It's been an honor and a privilege to produce the Plant Strong podcast as part of our mission to reach as many people as possible with the good news about plants. Speaking of good news, to celebrate this 1 million download milestone, we've got a bunch of Plant Strong prizes to give away this week. We have signed copies of my books, boxes of Rip's Big Bowl cereal, year-long access to our Plant Strong meal planner, plus complimentary registrations to our Rescue 10X online coaching program, and, drumroll, a grand prize, a 2-pack of commuter passes to our annual Camp Plant Stock event held each August. The winner can redeem these tickets in either 2020 or 2021, obviously depending upon what the next 4 months bring. Visit plantstrong.com/million to enter today or click on the link in our show notes. We'll announce the winners in all of our channels on April 27th. Again, I know there are many podcast options out there. Thank you for choosing Plant Strong. Your time is super valuable, and I'm honored you've chosen to share it with me. For this week, please know this episode was recorded ahead of COVID-19, but I hope you'll agree the message of hope and empowerment is relevant now more than ever. As you listen to today's episode, I want you to remember this quote: "Your genes don't necessarily determine your fate. Your diet and lifestyle choices do. And your diet and lifestyle choices can activate cancer-promoting genes or conversely deactivate them." My guest today, Chris Wark, received a grim colon cancer diagnosis at the young age of 26. And as most of us know, when it comes to cancer, and especially cancer treatment, much of the decision-making is based around fear. Who wouldn't be afraid if you were basically told you had a 50-50 shot at surviving? Chris, however, took a much different approach. Instead of using fear to drive his decision-making on chemotherapy, he turned to facts and his faith. And as he says today, "I just couldn't wrap my head around poisoning myself back to health." Instead of pumping chemo drugs into his body, he pumped in as many anti-cancer, antioxidative, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and alkaline foods as he possibly could and turned his body into a nutritional powerhouse. He built his body up instead of tearing it down. That was 13 years ago. Today, Chris is the best-selling author of the book, Chris Beat Cancer, and has a robust website of the same name, chrisbeatcancer.com. He's also the father of 2 beautiful girls and a public speaker. In fact, we recorded this episode on a holistic holiday cruise back in late February. And looking back, it was probably the last cruise that was allowed before they shut down the industry. And it may have been a near miss for us to take that trip together. But fortunately, we're both healthy and safe with our families. Prepare to be inspired by this man's fortitude, strength, and determination. Boy, was I. A quick disclaimer: this interview with Chris was completely unplanned. It was totally spur of the moment when I met Chris on the cruise. I completely jumped at the chance to sit down with him. But as you're going to notice, unfortunately, I had a confluence of technical issues that just hit all at once, from the battery on my Zoom recorder going down to the video stopping and starting. So I I deeply apologize about that, but I hope that you'll forgive these missteps for the value of the content. And Chris's story is worth all of these unfortunate production hiccups. Thank you. Chris, Wark, I want to welcome you to the Plant Strong podcast.
Thanks, man.
We are deep into season 2, and you are the perfect person for the theme of season 2, which is the heart of a hero. When I think about what you've done as far as tackling and beating cancer, and all the people that you kind of helped and brought along with you along the way, it is it's pretty amazing. And
thank you.
So we really like to honor people that are changing the game, and you're right up there. Now, I would like to say that we just met for the first time on this Holistic Holiday at Sea vegan cruise with 2,000 other vegans and wannabe vegans that are kind of
plant lovers,
learning about the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear all about your story. I'm not really acquainted with it, except that you're alive and you beat cancer, right? And
right.
that is a fantastic thing. I have so many questions that I want to ask you about this journey that you've been on since. And how long ago were you basically diagnosed with cancer?
So I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer when I was 26.
26,
young guy. Like, I was in real estate. I was flipping houses. I was playing in a band. I was like really excited about my life. I was a newlywed. Like, things were going really well for me. And I started having abdominal pain, and I put it off for the better part of a year. And but eventually the pain progressed. It started out with just sort of nagging little pains, and it progressed. And by the fall of 2003, spoiler alert, didn't die. It got so bad that I was like, I gotta go to the doctor. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I had an ulcer, and it was like, oh, it'll get better. I don't know what that pain is. Like, I'm too busy to deal with this.
And so, like, where in your body was the pain located?
Abdominal pain. It was sort of on the right side, to the right of my belly button. But like with the colon, for me, it didn't feel like a stomach ache. It just was different.
Yeah. And
it's hard to explain. But there were some sharp shooting pains that I would get from time to time, and then there was sort of a dull aching that would sometimes wake me up in the middle of the night, and I'd kind of feel the urge to go to the bathroom. And I'd go to the bathroom, and then I would get some relief. And then I'd wake up in the morning feeling fine. But it was bothering me at night.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this. So after the fact, have you learned that this colon cancer that you had, where it was located in your colon, is this where colon cancer typically happens? Is this a very common spot for it?
Not necessarily. I mean, you can get it in the ascending colon or the descending colon or the transverse.
And where was yours?
Mine was ascending. And I honestly don't know which area is the most common, but they're kind of all, I feel like they're all kind of equally distributed. But your colon has 3 sections. It goes up, across, and then down to your rectum. So I went to a gastroenterologist, had a colonoscopy, woke up from the procedure, and they said, you've got a golf ball sized tumor in your large intestine, in your colon.
Golf ball.
Yeah, golf ball. And I'm like, what? Like, a tumor? I mean, I'd never had any health problems, never been to the hospital really for anything. And like, now I'm like, I got a tumor in my colon? So, like most cancer patients, I mean, they basically gave me this spiel everybody gets. Like, look, they took a biopsy, called me a couple days later, said, it is confirmed you have colon cancer. Yeah. It's very aggressive in young adults. We got to get this thing out of you before it spreads and kills you.
Well, can I stop you for a sec? So you're 26. You've gotten diagnosed with colon cancer. Any colon cancer in your family history?
No.
Okay. And mean, 26 seems extremely young.
There were some family members diagnosed after me.
Oh.
But colon cancer is like the second most common cancer. It's very common.
Okay.
It's a dietary disease.
Yep. No.
We'll get to that.
Okay. And then, I mean, did you eat a horrendous diet? Do you think that contributed, or?
Well, we know the diet contributes to colon cancer.
Yeah.
I ate the standard American diet, Western diet, tons of fast food, junk food, processed food, tons of meat and dairy.
Okay.
Those are my staples. Because I was always thin, I thought I had a free pass and I ate whatever I wanted. And so, like, yeah, man, I'm going to Burger King, getting a double cheeseburger, like supersized fries and like a large Dr. Pepper. You know what I mean? Like I can eat whatever I want.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that was the way I ate. I was, I was going 90 miles an hour in life. I was really excited about what I was, trying to accomplish, but I was eating on the run. And yeah, a typical breakfast was like some microwave Jimmy Dean sausage biscuits or some cereal or something. And, lunch was fast food for sure. And then dinner, more fast food, or sometimes my wife would make like a sit down dinner with like your typical chicken and some green beans.
So you're married at 26.
Yeah, I'd been married for 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
So, no kids. So I agreed to have surgery, but most cancer patients are rushed into treatment out of fear.
Did you decide to get a second opinion, or were you just like, wow, okay, I'm getting this taken care of? Or
I actually did get a second opinion, and he said the same thing as the first guy.
Yep.
So
I'm just wondering, like, what you know now is, I mean, do you recommend people like get a second, third opinion?
Honestly, 3 opinions is a good idea, because there are so many people who are misdiagnosed.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of people are misdiagnosed with cancer that don't even have cancer. And I mean, there's news stories that are coming out periodically of like woman treated for cancer, accidentally, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that really does happen. So you don't want to be one of those people. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go through chemo for nothing. Mm-hmm. So a second opinion, even a third opinion, is a very good idea. Always. It's kind of like, you get 2 or 3 bids if you're going to, get your roof put on. Mm-hmm. You might as well get 2 or 3 opinions on your colon, right? So, I was saying earlier that, most cancer patients don't have time to think about their life. They don't have time to investigate or learn about their disease or what the causes of their disease. They don't have time to investigate what treatment is going to involve. They're just rushed in out of fear. And fear-based decisions are almost always the wrong decision. Like, we need to make decisions based on facts and faith, not on fear, because when you're in fear, you're completely irrational. And, but that's the way the cancer industry, unfortunately, just rams people into the system. They strap them on the conveyor belt and off they go. And they don't learn until much later, or sometimes they learn right away how brutal the treatments are. Mm-hmm. And then down the road, they learn that the treatments don't work for most people. And by work, I mean cure. Right. They work in the sense that they might slow a tumor down. Mm-hmm. They might shrink it a little bit. They might even make some tumors or lesions or spots disappear temporarily, but they almost always come back, and they come back more aggressive. So I didn't know any of this.
Right.
Okay? I knew nothing.
So you've had the surgery, right? You had the golf size.
I go in the hospital. Yep. They cut out a third of my large intestine, which is like 1.5 feet. Took out the tumor. When I woke up from surgery, they said, it's worse than we thought. The cancer spread to your lymph nodes. We took everything we could see. We think we got it all, but you're going to need 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. The reason is because circulating tumor cells leave a primary tumor site when it's even before it's stage 1. So
for our listeners, can you describe the difference between stage 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yep. Stage 1 is very small tumor or lesion. Stage 2 means it's usually kind of, in the case of colon cancer, it's broken through the wall of the colon. So it's bigger, it's more vascular, more blood flow to it. Stage 3 means the cancer cells have spread to your lymph nodes. So you might have inflamed lymph nodes.
So you officially had stage 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And then stage 4 means there are cancer cells, a spot, lesion, tumor in another organ. So I was stage 3C, which means it was on its way to another organ, either my liver or my lungs. Those are typically the places that colon cancer metastasizes to. So it wasn't good news.
How did you take that news?
Oh man, I was doped up, so I was just kind of like, okay. I mean, it's like, it's hard. I knew it wasn't good, but I was on some pretty good drugs. So that softened the blow a little bit.
Did you have a support group that was there with you, like your wife, your mom?
I did, yeah. I mean, her parents, my pastor, my former boss, like a lot of people came to see me in the hospital, which was like so great. It was like, I mean, it was great, but also was kind of, I don't know if it's just me, but like when you're in the hospital, like you're not looking your best, you're in like a gown and you're in the hospital bed and you're in there because you're jacked up, right? Something's wrong. And so you kind of don't want people to see you in that state, right? It's kind of humbling. Yeah. And for me, frankly, the whole cancer experience was a huge blow to the ego, of course, and humiliating, embarrassing, humbling, because I think as a man, you want to feel powerful and invincible and strong and tough. And to have this like disease, especially in your colon, it's just like, I mean, I felt shame, right? I felt, I just felt so weak and vulnerable and insecure.
Well, there's something about, too, cancer that just seems so absolutely frightening, and that maybe people that are going to like turn their backs on you maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. But anyway.
That does happen, which we can talk about.
Okay, but and you obviously, I mean, you had to face this thing, like stare it right in the eyes and decide what you were going to do with it.
Right. So I'm in the hospital.
You have no idea how like anxious I am to hear this story.
Here it comes. So I'm in the hospital, and a couple things happened that were so strange, and I'm so glad they happened because they started me thinking differently, and also makes for a good story. But the first meal that they brought me after cutting out a third of my large intestine was a sloppy Joe. And
just what you want coursing through your recently cut on colon.
The sloppy Joe is the food that no one likes. Restaurants don't serve them. I know you have a sloppy Joe recipe in one of your books, but that's a plant-based sloppy Joe, so I'm sure it's
lentils,
better.
Yes.
Oh, yes, red lentil sloppy Joe. I'm sure it's good. I would be willing to taste or eat the whole thing. Probably, I'm sure it's awesome. Yeah. But just like the sloppy Joe, like that everyone is thinking of, the man-witch. Yeah. Right. And as far as I knew, like that was just something they served at summer camp, or if you're in the military or you're in prison. And so, surprise, they're serving it in hospitals to cancer patients. And I guess everybody else was getting one that day too, right? Yeah. So that was weird for me. I was like, why? This is gross. Like, why are they serving this to sick people? Like, what is wrong with the system? A couple days later, a surgeon comes in and we're talking about, this is like, they told me I could go home. And so he was checking on me one more time. And I said, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? Because in my mind, I'm trying to help myself and I don't want to screw anything up. Mm-hmm. They just cut out a third of my large intestine, sewed it back together. Everything you eat is going through that tube. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm thinking, is hot sauce going to melt the stitches? Are Doritos too sharp? Yeah. Stupid thoughts like that. And so I said, yeah, hey, is there any foods I need to avoid or whatever? And he's like, nah, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer. So that was it. Like, that was all the dietary advice I got from my abdominal surgeon.
Unfortunately, knowing what we know now, not very surprising.
Not surprising. Doctors are not trained in nutrition, and so they ate the same horrible diet as everybody else. And it'd be a little bit hypocritical for somebody eating a horrible diet to tell someone else to eat healthy. So, yeah. So again, I'm like, man, something's wrong with healthcare. I knew what healthy food was. My mom was into health food growing up, so she wasn't vegetarian or vegan, but she was buying healthy, the peanut butter you have to stir instead of the sugary peanut butter, and she was buying, she would let me get like shredded wheat kind of cereal, but she didn't want me to get like Fruit Loops, like the obviously junky stuff.
Yeah.
But my first birthday party was at a McDonald's. So, I mean, I ate a lot of fast food growing up. I basically ate the standard American diet with a little bit of healthy flourishes, like sprouts and stuff.
So for a good 20 plus 6 years, you basically had those carcinogens coursing through your colon, rubbing up against the wall.
Yeah, of
course.
Obviously, And young adult colon cancer, there's often a genetic component to it, right? And so, but your genes don't determine your fate. Your diet and lifestyle choices do. And your diet and lifestyle choices can activate cancer-promoting genes, or they can deactivate them.
Powerful.
And yeah, it's huge. I mean, this is called epigenetics. And it's a vast field of research on the way our choices affect our genes. And so it doesn't... this is important to mention. By the way, I didn't know any of this stuff, right? Didn't know anything about cancer in the beginning, but up to 90% of cancers are caused by 3 factors: diet, lifestyle choices, and environment. Those 3 things are up to 90%. Only about 5% of cancers are genetic. And so, and unfortunately, most cancer patients, when they go to the doctor, they say, "Why did I get cancer? Like, how did this happen to me? Why do you think they're trying to get some answers, trying to make some sense of it." And I think everybody kind of already understands we live in a cause and effect world. Everyone knows there's a cause. They're trying to figure out what the cause is. But doctors often tell the patient, almost always, well, it may be hereditary. Do you have family history? I didn't at the time. Well, it could be genetic. Or could be, or it might just be bad luck. And what happens when a doctor says that to a patient, which is what they almost always say, what they're saying underneath that message is, there's nothing you did to contribute to your disease, therefore there's nothing you can do to help yourself. I was talking to a cancer patient the other day, and she was telling me about her friend that she was trying to encourage to eat healthier and, get on the healthy train. And her friend said to her, quote, "My doctor said there's nothing I can do."
Right.
Like, isn't that painfully tragic? I want to put that on a t-shirt. My doctor said there's nothing I can do. Yeah. So it turns a cancer patient into a victim.
Yeah, victim, and you're giving that doctor, like, basically, you're turning him into a demigod, right? And hey, man, the doc said nothing. I mean, hey,
it's not my fault. Nothing I can do.
Yeah.
This is the subliminal message. You're a powerless victim, right? Your only hope is us, medical treatment, and so just show up for treatment.
So what in the world? So what happened to you? I mean, that you decided to obviously not go down the traditional route.
I get home from surgery, and I am starting to come off the pain medicine, right? In the day, week, whatever, few days to a week. And as I sobered up, like, I'm really thinking about my life and my future, and like, how much time do I have left? Am I going to see my 30th birthday? Like, what is my life story going to be? Is this it? Like, Chris, cool guy, whatever. Like, man, he was smart or funny or talented. Like, yeah, great musician, whatever people would say about me that I hope they would say. And like, it's too bad he died of cancer in his 20s.
Sucks.
Yeah. Just like, I can't believe this is like my story right now. And so and I was thinking about chemotherapy, and I'd seen people in the world that were cancer patients, chemo patients, and it's disturbing, right? Not to sound mean, but it's disturbing to see someone in that state, right? Where they've lost all their hair, their skin is yellow, they're emaciated, they may be wearing a mask over their mouth because their immune system's been destroyed, you know, or sometimes they're really big, like they're really kind of puffed up from all the steroids they've been given. And, you know, it leaves an impression on you when you see someone in that state. Yeah. And I could see myself in that state. And it was scary. And my instinctively, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, was basically saying, like, you don't need to do this. I knew that physically I was not strong enough to endure chemotherapy. I was like I'm 6'2". I was approaching 130 pounds because I'd lost so much weight. Like I was in the 130s at that point.
So was part of losing that weight just because over the 6 months to 9 months when you weren't feeling well, you weren't eating as well?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't eating as much because I was connecting like eating with pain.
Yeah.
And it's really terrible when you have a digestive disease and eating becomes a source of pain. And so I had lost weight through that process, and then you have surgery and you're not eating for almost a week in some cases because you can't eat before the surgery, and then you're out cold for like a day, and then there's a few more days and whatever. So yeah, man, I was just in a really, really fragile physical state, and I just felt like it was going to kill me if I did chemo. I just didn't think I would survive, and so that was with very little knowledge about it. It was just instinct.
So what gave you the confidence to stay off that chemo train?
I'm in this. I'm thinking about everything, and I just can't wrap my head around this idea that you can poison your way back to health. And so I just prayed about it. My wife and I are Christians, and I'm just like, God, I need some help. Like, I don't know what to do. This doesn't feel right. I don't have peace about it. And if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. Right? That was the prayer. Just please show me if there's another way. And 2 days later, I got a book.
Your prayers were answered.
Man, I'm telling you, this book shows up on my doorstep, was mailed to me from a man in Alaska who knew my dad, sends it to me in Tennessee. I start reading it, and it was written by another guy who had healed his colon cancer with a radical diet change. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting reading, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This guy has healed his colon cancer by changing his diet. And so, I got really excited. In fact, I was sitting on my couch and I got so excited I actually started to tear up.
What was the name of the book?
So that book's called God's Way to Ultimate Health, by a man named George Malcolmus. And so, I just knew it was an answer to prayer. Like, it was such a powerful moment. And I was so overcome with emotion, just of like, thank you, God, for this, because this is what I'm looking for. And in that book, he basically is making the case that the reason so many of us are sick with chronic disease is because of our diet and our lifestyle choices. And if you radically change your diet, you can empower your body to heal. If you remove the things that are causing the disease can resolve. And I'm like, this is like the best news I've ever heard, right? Like, really? Is this true? And so, I just got really excited. And that book was about the raw food diet, raw foods and juicing, right? And there's a chapter in there about chemotherapy and how destructive it is and things like that. And it was like, sort of more
confirmation
that like, oh man, it is worse than I thought. And that book led me to a lot more books. But in the beginning, that was all I needed. I just needed one person's story. Like, one guy did it, right? If this guy did it, maybe I can do it. We're both human.
Yeah. So let me ask you, so you're thinking about it, you read the book, you're like, all right, I'm not going to go down this chemo, path. But you have, like, what's your wife thinking? What's your mother thinking? Your father? Are they supportive of this decision? I mean, I would imagine that would have been pretty hard for them.
So my mom was supportive because she had and this is what's crazy, and there's all these little mini miracles all throughout my story, but my mom, being into health and nutrition, had stacks and stacks of books that she had bought at the health food store since the 1970s. All the books by Paul Bragg, Pablo Areola, raw food books, alternative cancer therapy books, all these books. Like, it was insane. Never needed them. She just thought they were interesting and just loved to read up on, alternative therapies and herbs and vitamins and all this stuff. And so she had this library of books that she'd basically been saving for me.
So she's on board.
She was on board. She understood right away. But when I told my wife, as I was reading this book and man, I got to do this. This sounds amazing. When I told her, I called her at work and she was like, what? What are you talking about? It was so foreign to her, and she was not happy about it at all.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And then other family members started to get involved, and they were saying, you need to do exactly what the doctor says.
Yeah.
Alternative therapies don't work. Don't you think if there was something better, they would know about it? This kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm only in chapter 2 of this book. Can I get back to you? So I overnight converted to a raw food diet. There was no hesitation. There was no easing into it. It was 100%. Where can I get a juicer?
Yeah.
Where's the fastest, where can I buy a juicer today? And I went to Whole Foods, loaded up on fruits and vegetables, got a big bag of carrots, Champion juicer, and I just started. It's I don't even know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm not doing.
Yep.
Right? I'm not eating any animal foods. I'm not eating processed food or fast food anymore. And so off I went. Now there's a bunch of family pressure, right, to go see the oncologist to do chemo. So in order to appease that pressure, which is intense, extremely intense, and hard, because when I told everybody and they disagreed with me, it was it's painful when you feel like people withdraw their support. And so I was trying to get these people on board and appease them, and so I was like, okay, we'll go talk to the oncologist, we'll see, hear him out or whatever.
So when you say you were getting pressure from the oncologist, or what does that look like?
We go to the oncology clinic. We're sitting in the waiting room, waiting to go back. I'm looking around. Everybody in the room has gray hair. I'm 26. You know what I mean? Everybody there is twice my age or 3 times my age. And I'm just I don't belong here.
Yeah.
This is I'm just I felt even more insecure, even more of a just freak. Oh, look, all these old people have cancer, and I'm 26 and I've got it. So the TV's on, and it's one of the morning shows, and out comes Jack LaLanne.
Jack's still alive.
Jack LaLanne. He's pushing 90 at this point.
Vegetarian.
Lifelong vegetarian.
Yeah.
He comes out, he starts going off. I mean, he's a little fit guy, and he talks like this. And he's
he's a big fan of juicing, isn't he?
He's a big fan of juicing.
Yeah.
He's everybody needs to start juicing. You need to eat fruits and vegetables. If man made it, don't eat it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm he's speaking my language, I'm just oh, I can't believe this is right now in the cancer clinic. I'm sitting here, my wife's next to me, and I'm can you believe this is on right now? This is crazy, right? And she's it's pretty weird.
It's a sign.
Yeah. So then we go back and see the oncologist finally. And it takes forever, man. They're so inefficient. We wait for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And he, this guy is just a stereotypical oncologist. He's extremely busy, seeing tons of patients every day, flipping through my chart. Okay, who's this next guy? All right? Okay, this is Chris. He's got colon cancer. All right, so here's the deal, Chris. You're stage 3C. It's very aggressive in young adults. We want to give you 5-FU and leucovorin, which are two drugs. And you got about a 60% chance of living 5 years with treatment. And I'm like, 60%? That sounds awfully low.
Almost 50-50.
It's almost 50-50. That's the thought. And the exact thought I had was, gosh, that's awfully close to a coin toss, really.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I learned years later was 5-FU, which is affectionately known as 5 feet under. Chemo drugs have these great nicknames: 5 feet under, Red Devil. That's a favorite. 5-FU is a 50-year-old drug. They've been using it for 50 years. Nothing better has come along. It's like they're still giving this drug from the 1950s. So I asked him about the raw food diet. I was like, well, what about the raw food diet? Like, what do you know about that or whatever? I'd been on it for a week. I was feeling pretty good. Like, lots of energy. Like, I'd kind of gotten over that first hump that you have to get through when you convert to a plant-based diet or a raw food diet. Like, the first few days, things are just weird, Energy's low, and like you're trying to break these cravings, sugar and animal protein and fat cravings, like all this kind of junk food stuff, and caffeine withdrawal. But once you get over that hump, like, you start to feel good. So I was feeling good. And he was like, no, you can't do the raw food diet. It'll fight the chemo. Okay. Are there any alternative therapies available, or, and at that point, like, his demeanor, it was like I flipped the switch on the guy. And he was like, no, if you don't do chemotherapy, you're insane. And then he just starts just berating me, just coming after me with like everything he can think of to talk me into chemo. And the fear just started to take over. When you're in a fear state, you don't think clearly or rationally. You become very impulsive, and your survival instincts kick in when you're in a state of fear. And so, like, most of the stuff he was saying to me, I don't even remember, because I was like the fear and the shock, and I was like, my hormones are pumping, right? Adrenaline and cortisol, and but one thing he said jumped out, like in the middle of the fray, and it was like, he's like, look, I'm not saying this because I need your business.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a car salesman technique. It's called the push away. And we finally finished I just was like wanting to run out of there. Finally wrap up the meeting, and like a robot, I just like went straight to the desk to made an appointment to start chemo in a few weeks. This is what happens over and over again in cancer clinics, And I'm not saying like all oncologists are like, evil and bad and blah. Like, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist about cancer treatment, but fear is so palpable in cancer clinics, and many oncologists use that fear to motivate patients to say yes to treatment. And the scary reality is that in private practice oncologists make up to 2/3 of their income from the profit on chemotherapy drugs. So it's the only segment of medicine where the doctors profit on the drugs.
And who pays them? Is it the drug companies that pay them for that?
You pay them, and the insurance pays them.
Yeah.
And cancer drugs these new drugs that are coming out, they're $1 million a year. Like, it's insane. Cancer patients are going broke, bankrupt, like life savings getting wiped out, and then into debt. I mean, we've all seen it. Like, they're begging for donations because everything's gone just to afford the next treatment or groceries or rent or whatever. Like, it's insane how much greed is driving this industry, and how much patients are not only suffering physically, but like it's financially toxic.
Well, so everything you've just described, to me there's a very parallel path that runs right next to it, which is with cardiovascular disease and heart disease, and I hear the same thing, you know, when people go in and the cardiologist says, you know what, we need to get you on the table tomorrow, right? I mean, you could die tomorrow. You've got a 98% blockage, you know, and fear, like you said, fear-based, right?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't get to the root causation of the disease, and you know, a lot of times it's worse, and there's complications from surgery, and yeah, anyway. So please continue.
It's the same MO.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was really, well, I'll say this. I went to that appointment feeling really good. Like, I was feeling good physically, emotionally, mentally. I was confident. You know, I had a lot of hope that things were, you know, I was going to get well. And he completely shattered all of that. And I walked out of there just discouraged and hopeless and afraid. And it was just a terrible day. We walked to my wife's car and sat in her car and just like held hands, and I cried, and like I choked out a prayer. It was just awful. Like, it was just such a low point in the journey, but it was necessary, like, because my wife saw how they treated us, and that started to change her.
Right. So what's the next chapter? How do you rebound from that, and where do you go?
I was super fortunate because I had weeks, you know, like around 3 weeks before I was supposed to start chemo. I had made the appointment to get the port, but I just went home and fired up the juicer. You know?
Fired up the juicer port, baby.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I just got to keep doing what I'm doing, like, you know. And I didn't know if I was going to do chemo or not do chemo. Like, I just knew, like, okay, I know what I got to do today.
Yeah.
I've got to overdose on fruits and vegetables. I've got to overdose on nutrition. That was the goal from day one. It was like, how can I get as much nutrition, anti-cancer foods into my body? And what I figured out,
Anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, healing, nutritious foods.
yes,
Into Chris's body.
into my bod. And what I figured out was I had to create something that was sustainable, right? And the easiest way for me to do that was to make all my juice in the morning. So I was making 64 ounces of carrot juice, and that evolved into a blend of carrot and celery, beet, ginger root, 64 ounces of that every morning. And I would drink it throughout the day. Usually through breakfast, it would just be juicing. For lunch and dinner, I made huge salads, giant salads. And it wasn't like a big bowl of lettuce. It was, some kind of greens like spinach, kale, or, arugula. Yeah. And mixing up the greens. And then broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, onions, mushrooms, peppers, apple cider vinegar, a little olive oil, garlic powder, curry powder, sauerkraut, like some kind of sprouted beans, like sprouted mung beans or sprouted garbanzo beans. And some avocado on there. Like, it was just giant, right? It was like everything in the produce department. I was putting zucchini and cucumber and like squash. It was huge. And almonds and walnuts. And I realized this is the most potent, diverse, and nutritious meal I can concoct. And I just need to eat this. This is my meal. So for lunch and dinner, every single day, it was the giant salad.
You get tired of it at all? Or
No. And not only did I not get tired of it, and it was delicious because with the sauerkraut and the apple cider vinegar and like the curry powder and garlic powder, I also had cayenne pepper on there. So man, it was just like this crazy, like delicious, like just so many flavors. I started to crave it, and I'm just like, that's all I wanted to eat. And I knew, just even though I didn't have any nutritional science background, and I didn't have any good nutritional science studies or books about nutritional science to like really reinforce this, I just knew like this has got to be good for me. Like this has got to be great for me, and I'm just going to keep pumping in the good stuff and let my body use what it needs. So, so I went from eating 1 to 2 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, the average American guy, to eating between 15 and 20 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day.
Bring it on.
Right? Yeah, just every day, man, every day. And I just thought, you know, I just have to keep up this intensity. Like, good things will happen if I can just keep putting this stuff in my body. Like, I'm just gonna like give it no choice but to heal.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd been doing for a week, right? And then I went to the oncology clinic and that went terribly, but then I just went back to it, right? Okay, I'm back at home. Let's make another big salad. Let's keep making the juice. And a couple weeks went by, and then it came to the day when I was supposed to go get the port. And I woke up and I was just like, I'm not going. Right? I'm not doing it. Not for now. I basically had this view, and it was kind of like this. I want to build my body up. I don't want to tear it down. I want to build it up. That's what I want to do right now. And I'm excited about doing this.
You're not excited about getting a port and going that route.
Yeah, and it's not excited is an understatement, right? I'm like, this is going to be suffering. And
you told me before we started this interview, you don't like suffering.
Yeah, I have an aversion to suffering. That was in the context of like, you know, hardcore triathlete training and long distance running and stuff. Like, yeah, I'm a sprinter, not a marathon runner.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't like suffering that long. But this is the same kind of thing. I'm like, you know, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be toxic. And my hair is going to fall out. I'm going to lose weight. It's like I'm going to be throwing up and diarrhea and like all this like pain and suffering, you know?
Yeah.
And like, no, I don't want to do that to myself. If I'm going to live or die, I'm going to do it on my terms. Right? I'm going to live or die on my terms.
So, all in that time, you know, I found a new team because like the conventional oncology wasn't working for me. Like, I didn't want to work with that guy, but I found a naturopathic doctor and I started working with him, and he referred me to an integrative oncologist who had come out of retirement. And he was an amazing man who had spent his whole life treating cancer patients conventionally and had seen, he was in his 70s, he had seen how ineffective that was. And so he was doing IV vitamin C therapy and other non-toxic therapies, and he was really interested in the immune system and trying to help patients boost their immune function so that it could fight the cancer. Like, he was like, you know, trying to understand immunotherapy back before that was really a word that people were using. And he supported me. He supported my decision not to do chemotherapy. Like, he explained to me that was the standard stuff, but he was just an amazing blessing in my life. And so between the naturopathic doctor and this integrative oncologist, like, I had a little team. Had my mom, my wife started to you know, warm up to the idea and come on board, but it was still early days, so she was pretty nervous that I was making a mistake. And just, you know, the most important thing that I did was just create a very simple daily routine. Eating the same thing every day, giant bowls full of vegetables, giant salads that were delicious, juicing every day. And I was so determined and so committed, like, to get well. Like, I knew the stakes, and it was like, if I'm going to not do something as drastic as chemo, I better do something equally as drastic on the natural side, you know? And so I was also taking tons of supplements, all kinds of stuff, you know, who knows if any of it helped, right?
Right.
But stuff from my naturopath, stuff I'd read about, like all kinds of supplements. And we do know now that there are some supplements that can be extremely beneficial, like curcumin and vitamin D3 and B12 and resveratrol and berberine. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff, even like mushroom supplements, beta glucans. This stuff I talk about in my book and in my course. But I was just doing everything I could find and afford, right? That was it. Like, I was there's a common thread that a lot of cancer patients have who've survived against the odds, people like me. And the common threads are they have a very strong will to live. They know why they want to live. They have reasons to live.
What was yours?
I had 3 reasons. There were 3 people. my wife, my mom, and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The three most important people in my life. I couldn't bear the thought of the three of them standing graveside, like putting me in the ground. Like that was too much. Like I could not bear it. And so I was like, I have to live for these three people. I also, you know, when you're confronted with your own mortality, you think, cancer has this way of like sort of cutting this line in your life between everything that matters and everything that doesn't matter. And you realize most of the crap in your life doesn't matter. Yeah. Most of the stuff you cared about, you don't care about anymore. You only care about a couple things. Living, right? Like living and the people in your life, like your loved ones and living.
Yeah.
Like nothing else. Like maybe a little bit of money so you can survive. And so...
Well, in retrospect, do you feel like cancer is one of the greatest things that happened to you?
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't, some people would call it a gift or a blessing, which I totally understand. I wouldn't call it that because like a blessing or a gift is something that you want. Yeah. But like I said earlier, like I believe that God works all things for the good of those who love him. So he turned it around. He blessed me through it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm more blessed having gone through it. And my life today is so much better than I could have imagined, right, had I not gone through that. So...
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm thinking about, like, I still don't know how much time I have left. And I want to be a dad. You know, I'm like, I don't know how much time I have left, but I want to be a dad now. I didn't really want to be a dad.
Yeah. Like,
I wanted to be a dad eventually, but now I want to be a dad now. And so I talked to my wife, and I was like, you know, what do you think about starting a family? And she, I mean, did one of the most courageous things of anybody I know. She said yes. Like she said yes to start a family, not knowing if I was going to be alive, around to help her raise this potential child that we were maybe going to have. And so we started trying to get pregnant, and she got pregnant right away. And then a year later, I was back in the hospital. And this time I was holding a beautiful baby girl.
I didn't know where you were going with that. I didn't know if you were in the hospital for something, a relapse, but no, awesome.
Holding a little baby girl, man. 13 months after my diagnosis, my first daughter, Marin, was born. And like, now I have 4 reasons to live.
If you're like me, you might be someone who has wondered, are carrots good for my dog? The good news is, according to Dr. Ernie Ward, the Chief Veterinary Medical Officer for Wild Earth Dog Food, yes, carrots are definitely good for dogs, in moderation, of course. Just like for humans, this orange root vegetable is a healthy, low-fat treat that is chock full of essential nutrients like vitamin A, fiber, and potassium. Carrots also contain beneficial nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin K, vitamin B8, folate, iron, copper, and magnesium. So feel good when you share one of your leftover carrot dogs with your pup. You can also feel good feeding your dogs Wild Earth dog food like I do, Jade. Save 40% off your first order using the code PLANSTRONG. Visit wildearth.com or Amazon today.
Cancer patients have to want to live. They have to have a reason to live. And they have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get well. Now, unfortunately, many cancer patients think that doing whatever it takes means suffering through the most brutal treatments allowable by law, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about doing whatever it takes is actually being willing to change your life, being willing to stop your bad habits, being willing to confront yourself, the person that you are, and admit your mistakes, face your fears, face your failures, and let go of everything you're holding on to.
That sounds like for some people that's a lot.
That's hard work.
That's hard, yeah.
There's something that I say often that people don't like, and that is chemo is easy.
Hmm.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
It's not physically easy.
No, you don't have to look in the mirror,
No.
right? You just got to sit in the chair and and take it.
You just show up and endure it. It's not physically easy, but mentally, emotionally, maybe even spiritually, it requires no change of you. I was talking to a cancer patient, and she was trying to help a friend and trying to encourage a friend to eat healthy, right? To eat healthier, and a plant-based diet could really help you, And her friend said, "My doctor told me there's nothing I can do." And she was, completely indoctrinated, no pun intended, into this victim's mentality, right? I am powerless. There's nothing I can do. My doctor has given me permission not to change, right? My doctor's told me everything I'm doing is fine. This is not my fault.
Yeah.
And if you have cancer, I think you need to assume the position that the way you're living is killing you, right? I'm not trying to beat anybody up. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad about themselves. But just assume the way you're living is killing you. This is good news, because if the way you're living is killing you, then you can change the way you're living, right? If what you're eating is causing disease, then if you change the way you're eating, you can promote health instead of promoting disease. And like when I had those light bulb moments, it got me excited. I couldn't wait to adopt a raw food diet and start juicing. I couldn't wait to see what would happen. I had so much enthusiasm and excitement and positivity, and that drove me to continue, right? To stay the course, and that tenacity and determination that I see in a lot of cancer patients, right? I've interviewed a lot of them on Chris Beat Cancer on the podcast and YouTube and the blog. I've interviewed a ton of people who've healed against the odds, holistically. Some of them healed without treatment. Some of them have healed when treatment failed. And some of them have healed with a little bit of treatment, but mostly it was a holistic approach. And they're what we call radical remission survivors. To sort of put the bookend on my story with cancer is I assembled this team to help me, and I created a simple daily routine that was as healthy as I could figure out, right? That I could do every single day. Overdose on nutrition, exercise, give my worries and fears to God, and repeat, right? Day in, day out. And there's a momentum that you develop, right? When you're doing the same things every day. It's like training, right? When you're training for triathlons or lifting weights, the consistency creates momentum, and the momentum produces results, right? Compounds your results. So you get stronger and faster and more fit, and your endurance goes up, and all these things. If you keep going to the gym or you keep getting on the bike, the same thing with nutrition. You keep putting the good stuff in, like things start changing in your body. Things start happening. You increase detoxification. You increase oxygenation of your tissues. You increase the just nutrient content of your blood and tissues. And you enable your body to start repairing and regenerating and detoxifying in a way that it never has before, because it has more raw materials.
Yeah, and I would imagine this way of eating is also very alkaline, which is probably very nice as well.
Sure, it is alkaline, and junk food, meat and dairy is acid forming foods, and so they're not helpful. There's a number of reasons why those foods promote cancer growth, but I can hit on a few for your audience. Not that your audience needs much convincing. Most of them probably aren't eating this stuff anyway, but meat and dairy raise IGF-1.
Yeah.
IGF-1 is a hormone that fuels cancer growth. That's the number one reason not to eat meat and dairy. But also, red meat has heme iron. Heme iron fuels cancer growth. Cholesterol fuels cancer growth. Dairy has hormones in it, 60 different hormones that are designed to grow a baby calf to be a giant cow. And those hormones fuel cancer growth. So,
and then when you cook meat,
yes,
create HCAs, heterocyclic amines,
yes,
that are also carcinogens.
Yes, and polycyclic
aromatic hydrocarbons.
That's right.
Which, I mean, that is crazy when I learned that basically you can be around a grill and just these polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons will get on your skin and go through your skin. I mean,
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah. I just read this amazing article on it. It's almost like secondhand smoke, but it's like secondhand barbecue, like stuff that lands on your skin and goes into the skin. It is awful.
That's terrible. I used to work at a barbecue joint when I was in high school.
Wow.
I was like a bus boy, like dishwasher, but in the back, there was so much smoke in the smokers and stuff. Like you would be covered with this grease that was in the smoke that was just back in the kitchen, and like you'd even break out. Like it would make you break out because it's just like grease is like getting into your pores and stuff. Yeah, I mean that probably didn't help either. So those are really the big reasons why meat contributes to cancer. And we know that World Health Organization, processed meat, bacon, hot dogs, ham, sausage, deli meats, jerky, salami, pepperoni, those are processed meats, and they're group 1 carcinogens.
Yeah.
They're at the same level of evidence as cigarettes and asbestos and formaldehyde.
Yeah.
The evidence is clear that they contribute to cancer, specifically colon cancer. Red meat, which they fed me the day after my surgery,
sloppy joes, sloppy joes,
that's right, is a group 2 carcinogen, which means it's a probable human carcinogen. There's a sufficient amount of evidence, not as high as group 1, but a pretty good amount for them to say it's probable cause. So there's so much evidence pointing to meat and dairy being cancer promoters, and in some case cancer causers, that it is really pretty crazy that any oncologist is letting cancer patients continue to eat those foods. But they're not educated. But here's what's real crazy. So they did a study on breast cancer patients, and they found that breast cancer patients who ate 5 or more servings a day of fruits and vegetables and walked an average of 30 minutes a day had a 50% decreased risk of recurrence after 9 years. So they cut their risk in half after 9 years from 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day and walking 30 minutes a day. Like that is this.
How simple is that?
Yeah, it couldn't be more simple. And it's like, why is that not pasted on the wall of every oncology office, right? Mm-hmm. Like, make a poster, put it on the wall, like tell every patient, like, you got to do this. We know that breast cancer patients who eat the most soy have better survival, even though soy's been demonized.
Yeah.
Soy is wonderful for breast health and endometrial health.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much evidence, so many studies. There's no way I could even come close to covering it all in this interview, but I do cover a ton of it in my book.
Right.
The nutritional science that supports what I did, and I'm really thankful to guys like Dr. Michael Greger and Dr. Clapper and Dr. Neil Barnard for, Dr. John McDougall, like all these amazing guys who are plant-based physicians, your father, for bringing the nutritional science to the public, right? Out, shining a light on it, bringing it out in the open so that the average person can use it to empower themselves. And you don't have to be a doctor to understand that fruits and vegetables can help prevent disease.
Yeah.
Like that, does not require a medical degree. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a doctor to read a nutritional science study, and there's lots of them out there. And most of the studies are maybe a little bit hard to read, but there's a lot of articles about the studies that are easy to read. That's what I do on my site. Take studies that are complicated and try to make them simple so people understand the gist of it. But We know that 10 servings a day is really ideal for disease prevention. It's really like between 9 and 13 servings a day. This is sort of the new consensus. If you want to prevent disease, you need 9 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, right? I was doing 15 to 20. Okay. So I was above that, above and beyond it. It used to be 5 servings a day. That's what they thought was good. But now we know, more is better.
Yeah.
Right? Even the 5 for the breast cancer patients was helpful. But more is better. And guess what? If you're eating 10, 11, 12, 13 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, there's no more room
So what about
for meat and dairy.
Yeah. And you're saying fruits and vegetables a lot. What about intact whole grains? What about beans, legumes? I mean, where do those come into play?
I use fruits and vegetables as sort of a catch-all term, but I
Okay.
really do mean all plant food.
Okay.
So whole grains are wonderful. Beans are exceptionally great anti-cancer foods.
Yeah.
Because of the phytic acid.
Yeah.
The phytic acid in beans is an anti-cancer compound. The paleo community has said it's bad. Phytates are bad. Inositol hexaphosphate, which is IP6, phytic acid, is bad. But the reality is it's not. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you want it in your body. Whole grains also have some phytates and phytic acid and other things. Generally speaking, whole grains are a little bit lower on the totem pole in terms of anti-cancer potency.
Right.
The most potent anti-cancer vegetables are the ones I happen to be eating every day in the giant salad.
Yeah.
Broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, the
Yeah.
cruciferous family, and then the allium family are really the top of the pyramid in terms of
Is that like onions and garlic
yes.
and stuff like that?
garlic and
Yeah.
onions and leeks.
Yeah.
They did a study where they dripped vegetable extracts on 8 different tumor cell lines to see, let's see what'll happen, right? Juiced garlic, they juiced leeks, carrots, celery, all kinds of stuff, broccoli. What they found was the number 1 cancer cell killer was garlic. Onions and leeks were right there, number 2 and 3. And then rounding out the top 10 was a bunch of cruciferous. Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale. So these are foods you want to eat if you care about cancer prevention or you're trying to heal it.
Bring it on.
Yeah, and you want to eat a lot of them, not just I'll have a little broccoli with my chicken.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to help.
Well, what I love is if you make the commitment and you're eating a really exclusively whole food, plant strong diet, I mean, you're going to be getting probably 15 to 20 servings of all these things every day, right?
Yes.
I mean,
if you eat 3 meals, each meal is going to be 3 or 4 servings in order to fill you up.
Yeah.
And so, bam, 3 servings is 9, 4 servings is 12.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
If you're juicing, and a lot of people ask, what's the deal with juicing? And juicing is medicinal food, right? You're juicing in between meals. If you're a cancer patient, you're really trying to get more nutrition in your body. Juicing is a way to add to the volume of nutrition, right? Without adding bulk, because it's really hard to eat more than 3 giant meals a day. Yeah. And most people don't have time. Like you and I talked earlier about how hard it was when you're training or trying to grow muscle or whatever, to eat 6 meals a day. Yeah. It's really hard. And so for cancer patients, that's why juicing can be a really valuable thing, is to really get more anti-cancer nutrition in there.
Let me I want to backtrack for a sec.
Yeah.
You had your daughter after 13 months, I think it was, after starting this lifestyle, your 4th reason to live. And what happened? You 5 years, you're going strong, you're alive. Are you seeing this oncologist at all? Or are you wave goodbye to him and everything that he has to do with?
Yeah. So what happened? I never went back to the oncologist that was a jerk. I just stayed with the integrative new team. I had blood work drawn every month. I had CT scans about every 6 months for the first few years. And we just kept a very close eye on things. And again, I stayed the course. I just kept doing the same thing every day. Eat tons of fruits and vegetables, overdosing on nutrition, juicing, raw foods, giant salads. And some other random stuff. Like I said, tons of supplementation, IV vitamin C, and some other things. And I just kind of went back to work, right? I got my healing stuff in place and I went back to work, but there's something
Back to work meaning what? Like real estate?
yeah, I was in real estate. And so I just kind of picked up where I left off. I started playing music again and writing songs and playing shows with the band, and was doing a little bit of touring with Arma Secreta, which is my band at the time, and was working and just like living my life. But there's something that we have to touch on, which is a big part of the process for me in healing. It wasn't just the food, because, I said earlier.
You said three things. Food, environment, and then also, lifestyle.
Lifestyle. So the diet's obvious, right? Junk food diet, tons of meat and dairy. That's a problem. Lifestyle is going to be like not exercising, drinking and smoking, right? That's a problem. We know those things cause disease. Environment. We know that environmental toxins can promote cancer growth and create cancer, especially so like if you're working in a chemical factory, right? If you're around noxious fumes, smoke, firefighters, right? Smoke, dirt, soot, any type of chemical fumes. Even the hairdressers have elevated rates of cancer with all the dyes and straighteners and hair products that are around. So it's important to look at your environment and make sure you're not exposing yourself to toxic chemicals that can be hurting you. So, but underneath that is a fourth factor that is hard to measure, hard to quantify, but it's a common thread with every cancer patient I've ever met and talked to, and that is stress. Stress is really an underlying root cause of almost all disease, many chronic diseases, because when you're stressed, if you have guilt, you're carrying guilt and shame or bitterness or resentment towards others, or if you're just living your life in a way where you're just constantly in the negative, you're critical, you're judgmental, like you're a fault finder, looking for flaws. Yeah. Like what happens is you're in a state of chronic stress. All negative emotions produce stress, and when you're stressed, you're gonna gravitate towards medication as a coping mechanism for stress.
Whatever that medication is.
And that medication is food. That medication is cigarettes. It's alcohol. It's sex. It is being a workaholic, shopaholic. But the big obvious ones, overeating, right? Cigarettes, alcohol, drug use. Well, those cause cancer, right? So the practices, the choices that we've made that lead to chronic diseases like cancer, diabetes, and heart disease were in many cases coping mechanisms for the stress that we didn't deal with. And so what I did in this process, because as I was reading and researching and learning from other survivors and natural health experts, this forgiveness keeps coming up, and I realized, okay, like if I'm going to do whatever it takes to get well, I'm going to forgive every person who's ever hurt me. Every person. I'm going to go back as far as I can in my memory banks.
Who's ever hurt you or that you've hurt them?
Well, it starts with forgiving everyone who's hurt you.
Yeah.
But forgiveness happens in several different ways. I'm glad you said that. I've seen a lot of cancer patients and talked to, more than I can ever count. And I've seen them do every therapy under the sun and do everything right. But the ones who do everything right, but they don't forgive, often don't get well. It can be the one barrier to healing that if it's not addressed will prevent you from getting well. So I cannot overemphasize how powerful forgiveness is. And you mentioned earlier, like, what about forgiving yourself? So forgiveness happens in three ways, right? You forgive people who've hurt you, right? You have to forgive yourself for your mistakes.
Yeah.
And you got to get right with God too. If you're carrying guilt, like for me, like I had to get right with God and ask for forgiveness. And the beautiful message of, Jesus and Christianity is that God loves us and he wants to forgive us. Like he's our Father. Like he loves us like unconditionally. And so it only takes, repentance, which is just turning around and saying like, I'm sorry, forgive me, that's it. And then he's like, yes, like I love you. Like, just like your dad would, if you screwed up, or my dad would, like, that's how our Heavenly Father loves us. So, anyway, that, and making amends. So that's the fourth, factor of forgiveness is there may be people in your life that you have a nagging feeling that you need to make amends with, and you need to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I was wrong, right, when I did this, when I said that, and please forgive me. And that can be so freeing. I mean, just all of those things like lifts such a huge weight off of you, right? Forgiving people, asking for forgiveness to people you've hurt, to God, forgiving yourself, like it lifts a huge weight. And so that's what I talk about this in a lot more detail in my book and my course, and just it's something that I'm really passionate about helping people do, because I've just seen the results, and they're incredible.
I am, in hearing everything that you just talked about, what I'm also realizing is that this is work. I mean, you gotta pull up your bootstraps, and you got to get to work on getting yourself right on a multitude of levels.
Yes.
And if you're willing to do that hard, difficult work, it sounds like, given the kind of alternative options that are out there, you can have some pretty phenomenal success.
You can, and that's the thing. I don't want to paint this as a quick fix, magic bullet, quackery cancer cure.
Doesn't sound like it to me.
There's no quick fix, right? And there's lots of people out there peddling this kind of stuff. And the reality is, like, of every person I know who's healed against the odds, they did all the things I'm talking about, right? They weren't the miracle cure person. They were the person that changed their whole life, radically changed everything. It was a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual change. Everything changes.
Almost sounds like a journey.
Yeah. It's the cancer journey is a common way people look at it, because you can't fix it overnight. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to really change who you are and break your bad habits. And like I said earlier, face your fears and your failures and decide to be a different person, right? To live your life in a different way. And so, I just try to encourage people to do that. And I want to say something too about, just in case anybody gets an idea that, or misunderstands what I do. I don't tell people not to do chemo. I didn't do it. Okay. But I don't tell people not to do treatment. I don't give medical advice. But what we do is we, first and foremost, try to educate patients and caregivers and anybody that's interested in prevention on the medical industry, so they have very clear and sober understanding on how it works, and so that they can ask the right questions and make the smartest decision for them as to treatment, whatever that is. I mean, the same applies in heart disease, right? Like, is it smart to get surgery, or is it smart to get a stent, or what are the risks, right? Same with cancer. There's a lot of risks, right? The stakes are high, especially when you're talking about surgery and chemo and radiation. These are destructive therapies. They can cause a lot of harm. They can kill you. And so a lot of your listeners have seen loved ones suffer and die through chemo. And I hear over and over and over that people tell me, chemo killed my fill in the blank, right? My mom, my aunt, my sister, my dad, my brother, my kid. So it's very important that you are fully aware of the risks and benefits of chemo before you say yes to it. And then if you say yes to it, we have tons of people in our community that are going the all-natural route, and we have tons of people that are going the conventional route. And so if you say yes to conventional treatment, if you have confidence in it and confidence in your doctor, that's great. There's so much more you can do to help yourself. Healing happens at home. And so that's where the diet comes in. That's where your lifestyle choices come in, exercise. That's where stress reduction and forgiveness and detoxification comes in. So you have so much power to affect your future and to increase your odds of survival, decrease your odds of recurrence. And why not, right? Why not take advantage of all this wonderful science and all these results and testimonials and all this great stuff that we have out there to help yourself.
I like that healing happens at home. That's what a great place to heal, as opposed to healing happens at a hospital. Ugh.
Rarely.
Rarely, exactly. So speaking of home, tell me, like, what's going on at your home front these days? Are your two daughters plant strong? Is your wife on board?
We do all eat a plant-based diet for sure. High plant-based diet, like 98, 99%.
Yep.
None of us identify as vegans, but I'm kind of in the blue zone school of like plant-based all the way, and little to no animal food. And my kids are thriving. They're doing great. 15 and 11, two girls. And I guess I didn't finish the story in the sense that I got to the 5-year mark and I had another scan, no cancer. And that's when I started thinking about, maybe I should share my story. I've been through this crazy thing, this life transformation thing, and I've learned so much. And I know there's people out there that I can encourage, that are looking, that are lost, that are hopeless, that just need a little encouragement, a little direction. So I started a blog called Chris Beat Cancer in 2010. And it was just, I'd never written anything in my life. The last thing I'd written was like some stupid paper for college that I didn't want to write. You know what I mean? And I'd never made videos before. But, I started writing what I'd learned, telling my story, speaking wherever I could, and making videos. And then I started interviewing other people who had healed and sharing their stories, because there's some amazing, Ruth Heydrich, who you know from Forks Over Knives, right? Yeah. I've interviewed Ruth, and has incredible breast cancer healing story, and she's a marathon runner, and just an incredible person.
Wasn't she diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer?
I don't know if it's stage 4. I don't remember. I wanted to say it was stage 2, but so I started finding all these other people with remarkable healing stories, and I'm like, man, this is way bigger than me. Way bigger, and I need to gather these stories together, because there's power in numbers. And if the world sees, like, not just the world, but if your average cancer patient stumbles across my site and sees testimonial after testimonial, story after story of people healing, and then watches these interviews, they'll see the common threads.
Right.
They'll get it, and it'll encourage them and inspire them and empower them. And so the site pretty quickly turned into that. It turned into more of that than just me, writing a bunch of articles about myself. And that led to a book deal in 2018. So, about 8 years after I started the website, my book was published. It took me about half as many years to write it. Hay House published it last year. It was a national bestseller. And
fantastic.
So, it's really been an incredible journey. It's been awesome just to see how, like I said, God worked this thing for my good. Mm-hmm. It took time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort, but now here we are on this cruise with 2,000 plant-based people, and it was amazing. We had over 100 people from our community come on the cruise this year, and it's my first time to be on it, and what a fun time we've had.
And what hope you are giving so many of these people that, are having a brush with cancer. And, just the hope, the strength, the fortitude that you're giving them, and the fact that, letting them know there's another option besides the traditional route that really, may not be the best. Wow.
There are many options, and there's a lot of science behind them. There's a lot of evidence. There's anecdotal, patient-centered evidence. There's a lot of, there aren't double-blind, placebo-controlled trials on nutrition versus chemo like we wish there were, maybe one day. But there's tons of science on the anti-cancer compounds in food, in fruits and vegetables. They're in there. We know they're in there, so get them in your body. Yeah. This is not complicated. And get them in your body in high volume every day. That's the deal, right? And then again, work on yourself and forgive and do all these other things too to help yourself.
So if people want more information, what's the best place for them to go?
Best place is chrisbeatcancer.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and barely on Twitter. But yeah, my website's got tons of resources, tons of encouragement, interviews with doctors and experts and survivors, and lots of articles. And, again, it's been going 10 years, so there's a lot of content in there. And I do have a book, and it's on Amazon and in a lot of major bookstores, called Chris Beat Cancer. Okay. So that's an easy place to start too, if you want to understand the cancer industry, understand what you can do to help yourself heal and sort of step through that process. That's what the book's for. And then I have a course called Square One, which goes a little deeper than the book.
Wow. And if anybody out there wants to meet Chris in person, I would like to cordially invite you to come to Plantstock 2020 in Black Mountain, North Carolina. It's right near Asheville, where Chris has, it sounds like your schedule's open and you'll be able to be there. And boy, what a fantastic addition you're going to make to an amazing lineup of doctors and inspirational people. And wow.
Invitation accepted. It sounds awesome, and it's 6 months away, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'll be there, barring any unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
The calendar's open.
Yeah, love it. Well, Chris, this has been a rather exciting and enlightening 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours to get 45 minutes of tape.
Gosh. But you truly have the heart of a hero.
Thank you.
You are like changing people's lives, making them better, giving them hope. And I just want to say how honored I am to meet you on this cruise, and I look forward to continued just run-ins together and both doing great work in this kind of vital time in in 2020, where we got so much riding on this.
Hey, the tidal wave's growing.
Yeah.
Right. Nutrition, plant-based nutrition is about to smash some new records in the medical community, in the public space. I'm excited about it, and awesome to meet you. I'm so glad we got to connect. Thanks for taking the time to let me share my story with your audience. It really means a lot.
Yep. Hey, peace. Engine 2, keep it plant strong.
Boom.
Boom. How can you pump as many anti-cancer foods into your body and become a nutritional powerhouse? How can you start to heal? Hopefully, this interview with Chris showed you that there are many options besides the traditional route when it comes to improving your own health. You definitely don't need a grim diagnosis to change your diet or your lifestyle habits, but you may need encouragement and guidance, and we are here to help. Reach out to us anytime and visit the resources at plantstrongpodcast.com to turn your body into a healing machine. One of the best features of our Plant Strong Meal Planner is the ability to search recipes that allow you to use random ingredients from your pantry or your fridge. Our 5-minute chana masala is a super popular recipe using canned beans, diced tomatoes, frozen brown rice, and spices. It's an easy solution to the what's for dinner dilemma that everybody has. Members can search our database of hundreds of whole food, plant-based, oil-free recipes and find delicious ways to use up what you have on hand while staying plant strong. And if you need help making ingredient substitutions, guess what? Our meal planner coaches are on hand 7 days a week. Save $20 off the annual plan and use the code HEALTHNOW. That's one word, HEALTHNOW. And visit plantstrong.com and click on the meal planner today. Thank you for listening and subscribing to our show. I want you to know that we read each and every one of your reviews, and we appreciate each and every one. If you want to learn more about this season or today's guests and sponsors, please visit PlanStrongPodcast.com. The Plan Strong Podcast team includes Lori Kordowich, Amy Mackey, Patrick Gavin, Wade Clark, and Carrie Barrett. I want to thank my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Kryl Esselstyn, for creating a legacy that will be carried on for generations and being willing to go against the current and trudge upstream to the causation. We are all better for it.